at the birth of him who is called the bright and morning star.
Follow the prophet. 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 Follow the prophet.
Damn you! God damn you all to hell!
Travis Wingoodsell. Well, it turns out that after the Supreme Court ruled against the coup d'etat of America to overturn the election, that the guy that was pushing the lawsuit that had the support of 17 additional state attorney generals or attorneys general. It's interesting though, when they abbreviate it AG, it's not A's G, it's AG's. And then over 126 or so GOP House of Representatives from Congress. He came out with a tweet or social media post calling for a union of states. And if you're not familiar with the Civil War, Joseph Smith himself prophesied about the two civil wars, merged it into one section. The good guys who won were called the Union Army, and the bad guys were the Confederates. And so it's interesting that this Confederate is now trying to switch the naming to create a Union Army to attack what he now calls the Confederate opposition of the deep state Democrats. They are literally reenacting the Civil War. We are in the first stages. And if he's got that much support, there may be such an attempt, but the Supreme Court will not be the ones to side with them. It'll have to be through war and through secession from the United States. And it's the same tactic that has been utilized with the Democrat and Republican Party. If you remember, during the Civil War, the Democrats were conservative, and the Republicans were liberal. And with Nixon's campaign, they switched, and Republicans became conservative. Not just conservative, though. Demonic, satanic, Luciferian. Because they flipped the star on the elephants. Turned them upside down. If by chance you see a pentagram, do not let it stay. Quickly turn it upside down and worship the devil today. And so, ever since the GOP elephant, and you can see it on the Utah GOP elephant, they have the inverted pentagram. And of course they don't think Mormons will notice or take note of any significance because the church has the inverted pentagram. oh yeah, the GOP is the government for the church, yay. Everything's fine, all is well in Zion. But yeah, they did a little switcheroo with the name and the meaning behind the name. All part of it's a brainwashing technique. Straightforward with you. That's what it is. It's mind manipulation. Altering definitions of words that were commonly understood to be one definition. And so the liberals became conservatives, and the conservatives became liberals. And that's what we're seeing now, is that they're trying to flip it during this crisis that we're experiencing, so that the GOP they're literally trying to erase their ties to the GOP. And now try to call themselves the Union of States. And so I don't know what they're going to call the other states. I'm sure they're hoping to divide and conquer, because that's another war tactic as well. And if the other states don't form their own union to fight the union, and they have to call it a different name, and I hope they don't call it the Legion of Doom. Yeah. What if the Legion of Doom called themselves the Justice League? What would the Justice League do? Would they call themselves the Justice League, or the Reorganized Justice League, or the True Justice League? Oh man, he took our name. And so what do we do? Because if the rest of America cannot unite against the Union of States that is already in the process, it's already been announced, and so we'll see if anybody does decide to do it. But can you imagine the horror? Which side would Utah take? The church supports Trump. The Herbert and Cox didn't want to support this lawsuit because of the money expenditure on it. But would they then side with the Union of States under Attorney General Sean Reyes? I mean, how would we commence with commerce? I'd have to check a map of the 17 or the 18 states to see if there's a connection to all of them, or if some of them remain isolated from the main body, to forecast potential war strategies. If you've ever played Axis and Allies. But dear God, we're looking at a horrific nightmare scenario coming up. And so I wanted to let you know about a little history that it is referred to in the Book of Mormon, but not completely. And that is of the beginning. It talks about the first year of the reign of King Zedekiah. And as I've been trying to tell you, that's when Babylon conquered. and put Zedekiah as the king on Jerusalem. He was not chosen by the people. He wasn't the proper birthright blessing son. He was the puppet king that Babylon put on the throne, removing the previous king. And he was supposed to give tribute to Babylon. And yes, it's done through caravan. They have to load up the tribute as required and ordered by Babylon, and every year send the caravan over the Fertile Crescent, which I think by then was now getting barren, if not barren by then. It used to be the Fertile Crescent. And take it into Babylon, where it was dropped off. And Zedekiah sort of neglected to do so for 11 years. It takes some time to take an army to march, so less than 11, maybe 10. And so, yeah, the king of Babylon pays attention of who gives tribute and who doesn't, and thus the need to send his army in to say, hey, we were serious, you didn't do it. And what Babylon did was, the second time around, they just destroyed. They leveled the land, destroying the buildings, destroying the temple, taking the treasure. Any treasure that was there, they took it again. And I'm sure they took all the food that was available when they came, so that their armies can be fed on the way back. And then any other, what's it called? Abraham paid tithings to Melchizedek was not tithes. It was the it was a tribute from the spoils. There, spoils. And so the spoils of war are granted to the soldiers in such cases, if they weren't such that the king of Babylon would want them. And so, like, the gold and silver and all the money and whatever would go to the king of Babylon. And then they took captives, prisoners. But as the Bible records, they only took the elite as prisoners. And they did not take the regular common folk. Those they murdered. Massive slaughter. If people survived, it was because they knew where to hide. But for the most part, it was a complete and utter destruction that Babylon caused. And then the prisoners were taken to Ur of Babylon. There was a special prison camp, I guess we can call it, where documents have been found of those elite Jews that were taken captive into Babylon. And so that's confirmed to be the case as to what happened to them. And now this tactic is different than Assyria. Assyria came in 700 BCE, before Babylon, and took northern Israel. Their strategy was different. Because northern Israel refused to pay tribute to Assyria, when Assyria came in and said, hey, we're now the rulers, you need to give us tribute. And northern Israel said, no, we're not doing it. They then came in with their armies and deported the populace. And that's a different strategy. So yes, they got everybody removed from northern Israel, and they planted them in Assyria and to various lands to work the land in Assyria, to live as Assyrians. It was an assimilation war strategy. And what Assyria then did was take Assyrians and say, hey, you've got a new promised land, there you go, work the land and give us tribute. And so that's the way they did it. They took the rebels who refused to give tribute, brought them closer to the capital so that they can keep better watch on them to make sure that they give tribute, and put the loyalists, say, hey, you guys get land now. You guys get to do this, and we expect a quid pro quo of tribute in return. And it's more effective in getting the loyalists to comply, and keeping the ones who were rebels closer to you. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. And so when we look at what's going on now, is different than both Assyria and Babylon strategy. And we have, of course, you've been paying attention to all my videos, because there's only a few, just a few minutes each video, right? So you have plenty of time to watch all my videos and keep up to date on everything that's going on with criticism of the church in Utah and the government. But I think it was at the end of last year or the beginning of this year, before coronavirus was revealed, that what's his name in the Senate? He's not mine. It's Romney now. The guy that said Trump was Captain Moroni. Whatever his name is, if I remember, I'll blurt it out. He tried to get a law passed through the Senate, to get passed through Congress and thus signed by Trump, to allow for states to bring in foreign companies and thus all the employees for that company into the states. I immediately saw that as, uh-oh. Because what that does is it allows for foreigners to be brought in like Assyria did, to come to America to occupy. But there is no removal of Americans to that country like Assyria did. They're just bringing the foreigners here to America. And it's expected that the jobs that would be available would only be the slave menial labor jobs for the business, and that the residents, American residents, citizens of the states, would be the menial labor workers for these foreign businesses. And so I'm pretty sure that bill did not pass. But it tells you the mindset of Mormon Utah, because we have seen that in action here in Utah. Because Herbert, during his tenure especially, paid outside businesses to come to Utah. He bribed them with taxpayer money. And his thinking was, well, it's going to bring jobs to Utahns. No, it's going to bring slavery to Utahns. Because the Mormons, Utahns, have to work the menial labor jobs of these businesses coming in. Because they're going to bring with them the people they want to work in the key positions to Utah. So that the only jobs left are janitor, receptionist, those types of jobs. The workers in the factories or whatever job it is. And so all the corporate, expensively paid people will be the ones brought in from out of state. And then they pulled the stunt back in the 2000s. I think it was 2002, somewhere around there, when they Salt Lake City did their program to revitalize Salt Lake City, something like that. And what it was to create the Gateway area, the Gateway Mall, Gateway housing, all that. It was supposed to be a community in the Gateway. And they purposely put it across the street from the Rio Grande shelter. And this is why I'm very concerned for Utah's future, as I've done the video warning Utahns when that senator came out and tried to pull that stunt with that bill, is that we all now know what happened, because they wanted to revitalize Salt Lake City. What they wanted to do was exterminate the homeless. Just wipe them out of existence. And Operation Rio Grande has utterly failed. As the last couple of days I've been doing the videos talking about how they're doing sweeps of the homeless camps. We have new shelters. Why aren't they taking advantage of the shelters? Why are there still camps? I don't understand. We did this whole thing so that they wouldn't be homeless anymore. Yeah, well, they didn't know how to count. There were 1,100 beds at the Rio Grande shelter, as we all know, right? But it was overcrowded. They needed more shelters, if that's how you're going to do your business as normal. That's why the current economy of Utah is failing. But instead of admitting that, hey, we need to change our way of doing things, we can't bring in businesses and have Utahns be the slave labor for these businesses. We need to have Utahns be the businesses. Blue Bloods had an issue like that for the new district attorney position. As daughter Reagan was passed over. Oops, did I do a spoiler alert for you if you haven't seen the show yet? I know it's still early in the morning, but I've got a program to handle here in a minute, or a few seconds. But yeah, the 3 shelters, they eventually said, okay, fine, we'll build 3 shelters. Since we couldn't exterminate the homeless. And the total number of beds for all 3 equal 700. They tried to pull a Decepticon game on you. As they thought, oh, 3 shelters, guys. See? We're taking care of the homeless. Yeah, no, you're not. Okay, I didn't need to do anything. And as it turns out, they're now having an increased homeless problem because of coronavirus, because of the numbers, the weekly numbers of those who are unemployed. And if you're thinking, well, 4,000 isn't so bad each week, there's a certain number that are getting jobs again because they're not being listed on the continuous unemployed. And then you have no clue what's going on. People are giving up, are being denied further acceptance for the welfare. And so if they're not in the welfare system, they're not counted on the numbers of unemployed. Just like for coronavirus. If you didn't get tested and you die, oh, we don't get to count you. You don't get counted on the numbers. And I know yesterday we went over 1,000, but I exposed 2 days before that they had 9 die in the elderly care centers, but none die in the main page. How's that possible again? And so, yeah, they're not counting the elderly with the main page. And we're not seeing the children, because they separated the children also. See how they're manipulating the numbers? They may be counting the children with the main count. We don't know because they separated them. And they're not convincing me that they're adding them with it. And they're not giving death numbers. Death numbers would also be helpful in identifying whether they're including the children or not with the main numbers. And so, yeah, this is what happens when you divide, because you can then conquer, deceive the people. What they should have done right from the beginning is do all the different groups all on a chart. Have a main number thing, but then break it down for each category. For the age group, male and female, so that we can know along with them, because this is brand new for everybody, how this is affecting people and which sex and which age group and which race, etc., so that we can better handle it and better inform the public. But no, they have to cause confusion instead. But the need for food obviously is greater. And the Utah Food Bank is the one that's taken the brunt of it. You know, what about the church? Where's the church in all this? They're not helping. Oh yeah, we have our bishop storehouses. Oh, we've got more people asking for bishop storehouses stuff now that we've reopened them. The church does not want to give. They want to exterminate us. And as I was concerned when Nelson in his solemn assembly conference took away the high priest group, I was concerned just for the fact that he's denying Mormons exaltation, because you have to be a high priest and married to 10 virgins. Section 132, guys, come on, we all know this. This is not a secret. This is not a joke. That's the way Brigham Young put it in there and blamed Joseph for it. And so when he changed the temple text, and my ex told me that he had changed the law of chastity, and I went over the video that was released to see the text change myself, I went, oh crap. According to the law of God, section 132, 10 virgins. And so Nelson knows about this plot and is actively involved with it. That's why he's not shutting down the church. This is why he's not providing supplies of food and other necessities, so that Mormons don't get extorted by their businesses who are extorted by the government. The church is in on all this. And so what we're witnessing is a complete new war strategy. It's a scorched earth strategy. Kill off all the people and then have the elite rule in the aftermath. And the few impoverished people who survive, they then become the slaves to the elite. And I do worry that there will be outside businesses. Hello, I am Vladimir. I am here to start my business in Utah. Under the great imperial leader Trump, who is servant to Putin. As much as it's hilarious, it may not be far from the truth. As they don't want us to be successful. They've already got their chosen race and are inviting others from around the world who are of the chosen race to take possession and profit thereby. Whereas the rest of us, we're unworthy and we're not good for nothing but death if we will not be slaves. And I hope you understand the horror that's coming. Because who benefits from polygamy? The elite chosen. The high priests. Well, who will be the high priest in the church from now on? Those who are in leadership. Specifically high leadership, depending on how many girls are born in the future. And what is this coronavirus doing? It's purging the populace, targeting those who are poor, who are unable to afford health care, and those have been typically people of color. The white master race has figured out a whole new plan for war strategy. And it is terrifying. So, heads up. I think I'll do Duran Duran's Union of the Snake as the theme song.